Welcome to today's breakdown. This is Captain Hook and I'm gonna show you the DOM Diamant. So it's called DOM, like the German word for special church, and Diamant, like the German word for diamond. We have a very interesting disk detainer mechanism because the disks are not moved in only one direction, like in many alloys, which happens during turning the key. But here we have a mechanism that forces the disks in both directions. So much said. I'm taking the lock apart now. For this I'll use a T20 Torx bit, which should be the same for all DOM profile cylinders, which are modular. So when both screws are taken off, you can slide it off like this. Then we have two parts. That's the first and the other part, since it's a double cylinder. We have those washers here. I'll just keep them aside and we'll just have a look at this part here. So let me get the focus automatically. Right, like this. And let's keep it fixed. So to take it apart, I have to move off this clip, but be careful. It's easier to remove it than to install it again. Sometimes it's super easy, sometimes it's not. Now we can pull out the whole core. And the fun thing is, when they designed this lock, I think back in the 90s or so here's the C-clip, they said, okay, let's make a sidebar mechanism, but that's too boring. Let's give it not only one sidebar like here, let's give it also not two, and maybe also not three, but maybe four is too much. So let's give it 3.5 sidebars. So here we have a plastic sidebar also. Every 90 degrees we have a sidebar. The plastic sidebar belongs here. So let me go to manual focus and show you in detail. So here we see there are like no gates, there's just the hollow part. And that's exactly where this sidebar comes in. And it's quite handy to have it always in when you're playing with the lock, because on the other parts we have at every sidebar we have true and false gates, which you can see here. I'll also later take the discs out. I just want to show this is a false gate because it's much higher than down here the true gate. So if you look from this direction, you can see that there's actually very big height difference. And if I now slide in the key, you can see the discs turn in both directions and they are forced to do so. So now we have all gates aligned on all three sidebars. That's really cool, right? So we have the shell, which has a ton of grooves for the sidebars to lie in. Usually the core is in like this, but the other way. So we have sidebar here, here and here to bind, and we have a few extra grooves just to make it bind more often. And then we have so the material from this core here is cast metal, cast iron, I think it's called Duracast. And we also have this metal plate here at the front, which is also metal. So let's take it out. So that's like a drill protection. And for other forced entry attacks, then we have our first clue how the picking tip can look like. Let me show this. Okay, so now if we look inside, we can see something. That's maybe we also need this plate on top. So we see something like, come on, like this here. That's the shape of our picking tip that we want. Okay, let's have a look at the discs. And here are 3 types of discs. Here you can see how it goes along the key. It's moving and it's forced to move. There's no jiggle at any position. It's just rotating along the bitting on the key. On the back here, you can see, if I have the disc straight, how it's forced along this side and also on this side, but the bees are actually always moved on the back side. This part of the bee here is just to have clear room for the other side of the key. So that's the first type of bee we have. Then there is, if I take now the black sidebar out, like this here, or push it over, I can rotate this fancy wafer out, and now I have this really cool wafer. You can see there are 4 tiny ball bearings in there to make it run just smoother, and these are actually spacing the discs in the core so that we can't change the position of each disc. So this disc here lies freely in here. It can't rotate further because these grooves here hit the plastic sidebar. So this to here are the maximum rotations we can get, and it could move up and down if there weren't these discs. You can see they have some wings which engage with these grooves here, so they are actually really precisely placing each disc at its meant position. In total, we have 11 of these wafer discs in the log and 10 of these bees, which are divided into groups which are alternating. I'm not sure if there's some master keying or stuff going on where they are not alternating, but in principle they are, in my log they are alternating. And we can see there's a bee like this and a bee like this. And if you look at these grooves here, which are the rotation limiter, we see they lie like this in the keyway. So maybe I turn off the light again. And so like this. And we can also see that we have a lot of false gates on there. So there's like three gates. 2 of them are false and 1 is true. This is what we have on each side of the disc except 1. So each sidebar we have, each metal sidebar is facing discs with false gates. So here we have again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gates in total of different sizes and depth, and here again for the last sidebar. So I think I saw it at the first one wrong. They are all the same. If it's here, it's like here, and also like the downside. Here we have the same thing, but just a slightly different shaped disc. Quickly, because it's interesting and maybe important, this log has 5 possible cuts. A disc can be level, then it's a 0 cut. It can be tilted to 15 degrees in one direction, or to 30, then it's a minus or a minus 1 or a minus 2 cut. And it can be tilted 15 or 30 degrees in the other direction. Then it's a 1 or a 2 cut. So in total we have 5 cuts. So that's actually all you need to know how the log works. Maybe I could also say if we look at the key more closely, then we can see that one side is higher, this side has higher hills than the other side. And that's because we have a bee that has higher part here, and we have a bee that doesn't have this higher part. So that's the difference between the two bee shapes. So why does this lock actually have 3 sidebars if it's just about getting one sidebar right and the others are exactly the same? So that's because the sidebars are not against picking, they are against drilling and forceful attacks. So if there's one sidebar, I could drill through this hardened metal plate on one side, and then I could turn the lock freely. But then I will still have 2 others that are binding up, so I have to drill the lock here, here, and here through the metal plate and the metal housing. So that's actually a really tough lock that is really well protected against forceful attacks, and it's also really well protected against picking attacks. There's like one thing that you can mess up when you put the lock together is the direction of the gates, of the discs. They can face up or down. So if you get this wrong, then you might have a lock that is not working with a key. So also do not forget these wafers. And here's another tip. If you, come on, why don't you focus? So if you have the black sidebar out, there's a high chance of rotating some of the wafers in here or washer discs in the wrong position, so you can't get the sidebar in again, and then you have some real trouble to get this aligned with every groove. So you have to have the wafer really aligned with each groove in here to just turn it a bit, and then you can enter this black plastic sidebar again to keep it in place. Then you just put the final disc on. I think it goes this way, but I'm not sure. Let's find out. Maybe let's put the faceplate on so we can't turn anything wrong. Okay. And put it in. And now we can see something, and I can't say I did it on purpose. We see, maybe if I go to manual focus again, zoom a bit in, we can see there's one disc. Come on, there's one disc wrong. Can you track which one? So the second disc, this one here, is now right, but if I enter the key completely, it's wrong. But all the others are right. So I've turned this one the wrong direction. I will just quickly correct this, but that's something you have to take into account when you take your lock apart and want to get it back together so it's still functioning. Luckily, you can't really mess it up. If the key doesn't work and you haven't bind the lock in somewhere, you can just take it apart as many times as you want. So there's like no reason to be afraid. Thank you for watching, and have fun on Saturday at the picking video.